Hello, class. This is your professor, Dr. Brian Lippincott, and I'm here to give you a lecture on the concept of archetypes and how they impact Jungian psychology and how they're used in various fields, including organizational consulting and other places like advertising. So I want to give you a little help with your assignments, and I want to explain to you a little bit about archetypes. Okay. Archetypes were created, or that they were first created by Plato, way back more than 2,000 something years ago, as the forms. Those are the archetypos, the archetypal forms that, for instance, a chair. There's a form of a chair, even though a little chair and a big chair are both the same. That's where the term originally comes from, the ideas or the forms of Plato, and it has transformed through the years. And Jung uses it as a basic, universal aspect of the unconscious. And I'm going to go ahead and explain that to you. Okay. The cymatic blueprint. Now, cymatics is, for instance, you probably already know, if you play music in water, it makes a rippling effect that's like a mandala, that's like a circular thing like this. Or sand, if you ever get your boombox, or back in the day when we had boomboxes at the beach, you'd notice the sand started forming these concentric forms around it. So the world, and all over in biology, you see these mandala-like symbols and that are there in living things and in life in general. So the cymatic blueprint, a unified theory of the psyche, from biological instincts to cosmic entropy. Because death is one of the things that is an archetype. That's really the extension of cosmic entropy, that the universe has a tendency to go towards entropy if left at its own devices. Life is kind of counter entropy. An exploration of the unseen forces structuring human reality across neuroscience, depth psychology, and quantum physics. We're getting into some deep stuff here. So here we have the spectrum of reality, and Jung constantly used the rainbow as an example of the archetypes. And what he's talking about is for instance, the rainbow that we see, human beings only see actually a very limited part of light. With the light, there's the ultraviolet and the infrared that we can't even see. We don't even know that they're there, because in evolution, our eyes were formed to let us know things that have salience to us, like, is that a snake? No, it's a stick when I'm walking through the thing. Our brain would rather see 1,000 snakes that are really sticks for the one snake. Okay, so there's biological aspect of it, the spectrum of reality. So that's that rainbow. And so on the one pole you have the spiritual pole. That's where we have the archetypes and the archetypal images. Like in the class, I'll show you an infographic that has archetypal images on it. And on the other hand, you have the biological, the instincts that we have, and things like the mother-child bond, which I'll go into, is over here, but you can't see it. You never really get to see an archetype. All you really see are archetypal images or archetypal emotions or archetypal feelings. You can have archetypal sensations and visions and things like that, but you never really see the actual archetype. All you're seeing is a picture of it or a feeling of it, or it's not the actual thing. The actual thing is not in our spectrum of light, but we know they exist, which I'll go into, because of several different things. One is cross-cultural studies. The first people that studied the Inuit people up in Alaska, or the first explorers, asked about their dreams, and they had dreams of snakes, even though they could talk about their genealogy for generations back. They hadn't been outside of, they could say, Brian, son of William, son of Charles, son of Samuel, back. They could trace it back for 36 generations. So we know they had not been outside the Arctic Circle, so they couldn't have seen snakes. But yet, they had dreams of snakes. So that's the archetypal layer there of the unconscious. The biological lock. The physical body Evolutionary ethology, which is the study of primates. For instance, all juvenile primates and most mammals, juvenile mammals that are male, will have a dominance hierarchy. In other words, males just, that's why we have football teams. We have the captain and we have first string, second string. Well, that's why we have armies. That's why we have a lot of things, good and bad, but they come from biology, that there's something in the male hormones and the male brain that creates this need for a hierarchy, or this desire for a hierarchy. And a lot of it has to do with biology and passing it on to the next generation, which I'll go into that in a little bit. But so evolutionary ethology, that's the study of animals. Because if animals have it, it's not learned. It's just in our instincts. The subcortical affective system, matter and instinct. And we'll talk about Jack Penkinship in his work on emotional cores and affective cores. Affective cores. The cognitive mind, implicit memory, things that we don't know we remember before we even pre-verbal, our babyhood, our attachment. Internal working models, which is right from attachment theory. That's what we all develop by our relationship with our primary caretaker. We develop this internal working model, like people are going to be there for you, or people are dangerous, or people will let you down, or that, all those kind of things. Archetypal complexes that we have, consciousness and fantasy. Okay, so it's a lot of our movies and dreams will show archetypal images. The cosmic field, we live in a field. So cymatics, you play music and it affects the environment. My plants grow better when I play music to them. They like hard rock, by the way, but some plants don't, I guess. The unus mundus, that's the one world. The unus mundus. Mundus is world, one, unus is one. The one world, we're all interconnected. We're all more than interconnected, including animals and plants on the earth, and what are we doing to it right now and all that. And the entropic necessity of death. Death is one of the primary archetypes. There has to be a period at the end of the sentence. And nobody knows how their life story ends until you get the period at that last sentence. Okay, so, and also, reason why I'm talking about this in child and adolescent therapy is because our youth are growing up saying, I don't know if the world's going to be here. These adults are messing anything up. I give up. I'm going to check out. Screw all this stuff. I'm just going to play video games because they're destroying the world. You know, there's a lot of existential, there's a lot of little 14-year-old girls that are existentialists, that are like, have the same philosophy as Jean-Paul Sartre. Anyway, that's something that our youth are impacting now, that the lack of meaning in life and the lack of seeing their future, that every time they turn on the TV, the AI is going to take over their jobs, and what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be able to be a doctor? Are we even going to need doctors? That's what kids are thinking. The realization and assimilation of instinct never take place at the red end, but only through integration of the image, the ultraviolet part. So the ultraviolet is the image, that's the spiritual part. The instinctual is the red end, the infrared. Okay. Now, the infrared foundation, our evolutionary heritage, and this is a picture of the brain, shows the different parts. Archetypes are biologically wired infrastructures. Okay? They're wired into the brain, the structure of the brain, and the neurotransmitters in the brain, and things that have evolved ever since we were like lobsters, or before, when we were in one cell. They develop a strongly convergent manner within the brainstem and act as systems of readiness for action. So readiness for action is a term from ethology, where they're waiting for a certain sign stimulus. They're waiting for a stimulus that says go. And for instance, there's a fish called the sickleback fish. And the males and the females and everybody get along, they swim together and everything. But then when the female lays her eggs, one of the females lays their eggs, or all the females lay their eggs at the same time, it puts this chemical into the water. The chemical makes Male sickleback fish develop this red belly. And then the other fish see that red belly, and that's called a sign stimulus. That's a signal to go. And then they start doing this weird dance where they swim right at each other, and then men fish play chicken with each other, and one dodges, and finally nobody gets killed or really, really hurt, but they can get a little sore, little cuts and things. But they have this dance, and finally one fish comes out on top, and that fish inseminates the whole bunch of eggs. So that's an example of that instinctual system of the dominance hierarchy that I'm talking about, and why people do that. It goes all the way back to fish. It probably goes back way even before that. So let's talk about the triune brain, 3 parts to the brain, dividing it in 3 parts. Okay. Neuroscience, that's Paul MacLean, demonstrated that human brains incorporate older mammalian and reptilian structures. A patient brings not just human history, but a horse and a crocodile into the consulting room. So you have the crocodile is the lower part of the brain, and the mid part of the brain, the amygdala, is the horse that loves and cares for you, but it can't really balance your checkbook for you or whatever. And then the human brain is the very top. Okay, so sometimes when people are traumatized early on, the brain develops from the bottom up. You can't use trauma-focused CBT unless they get to that formal operations area for a child. Okay, so you got to start doing things early on. If the trauma was at 3 or 4, you got to have them bouncing on trampolines and taking them to the beach and go surfing. You got to have experiential sensory motor things, because that's where they got stuck. The affective core, now that's showing you the amygdala. These subcortical structures form an affective, which means feeling or emotional, core, providing the fundamental basis for primordial subjectivity, the me. I got to protect myself. I got to survive. Actively directing how an organism learns from its environment. The biological lock and key. So this is a sign stimulus. So this is an example here. Like, I remember when I had my first child, William, was really scared. I was a 28-year-old guy. I had an older sister. I hadn't taken care of babies. I was like, wow. But as soon as I saw his head pop out, I fell in love, and I knew. And there's something about, look at this picture here. You have the way the baby looks. Okay, the way the baby rabbit looks, the same look, and the baby dog. Oh, the baby chicken. Like I eat chicken, but I couldn't eat a chick. Right? Okay. So, I mean, there's something about that we all know. If we had something that had a face like this in our class, if we were meeting together, and we wouldn't just get up all and leave. If a little baby was in the class, we would all take care of it. That's an instinctual stimulus that brings out. And I really felt the father be brought out for me when I saw my kids. I knew how to do things that I never knew I knew how to do, like change diapers and do all these other things. All of a sudden, there was something in me that fell in love. That's what the baby is. And so attachment is the mother-child bond, or the parent-child bond, is really an important thing that's embedded in our psyche. A specific environmental cue. Example, babyishness. Now, if you think about it too, if you looked at this from the front side, it would look just like Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is universally loved in all of the world. That's why, because they picked that. They didn't maybe know that they were giving a sign stimulus of babiness to make people love Mickey Mouse, but they knew how to draw it. A large head, large eyes below the midline, chubby cheeks. Okay, the lock, the innate releasing mechanism. This is the lock here. An inherited biological structure built into the central nervous system primed to recognize the sign stimulus. So until the sickleback fish sees that red belly, they don't feel like a warrior. All of a sudden, they are a warrior fish. Okay, until I saw that baby, I didn't know how to be a father, but all of a sudden it was initiated, it was released. That archetype was in my brain, unconscious, but it was released by that stimulus. The biological release. The adult is flooded with innate feelings of nurturance, synchronizing mother and child into an attachment behavioral system. Aha, that's the turn. That's the fixed action pattern, you know. And for instance, across the world, in every culture, mothers will tell you their baby almost always likes the left breast more, and that's because it's closer to the heart. They can hear that sound that they're inside of their mother's chest. Although my daughter had two sets of twins, and so that's why God gave you, or the universe gave you, two breasts. But the one she had to keep switching sides because they always like the left breast more. Takeaway. The biological trigger and release operates identically to the Jungian archetype. In fact, it is the Jungian archetype, an inherited mode of functioning awakened by the environment. So you don't know the father archetype doesn't come out until you have a child, really, or unless you're around children all the time. And the same thing, the warrior doesn't come out unless you're in a war and you're dumped into situations like that. So we'll talk about the archetypes in a minute. The affective architecture, engines of the psyche. How does this happen? Now, in the 2000, Jaak Panksepp, you all should look up Panksepp's theory if you haven't already. Affective neuroscience. He's studying the neuroscience of emotions. He identified 7 core subcortical emotional systems that are in our cortex, that are embedded in the brain. These, in mammals too, these serve as the physiological foundation for the archetypes as such. For instance, 2 of them are seeking and lust. Now, lust, some people believe, is a little bit part of seeking, but we'll talk about the difference. So, seeking. The function of it is general purpose, exploratory, appetitive system. So it's just seeking, it's searching for things, it's looking at the environment, it's learning what this is green, this is that, this is where, I heard the sound. Is that a lion or is that the bush moving in the wind? That kind of, you're seeking, you're exploring. Human beings, why are we going on Artemis to the moon? Why do we go to the moon? Why do we want to go to Mars? It's that we have this human drive, this human archetype to seek and to learn. That's why you're all in this class. You're trying to learn about psychology to help other people and to help the next generation of life on this earth. Lust is a specific purpose system dedicated to reproduction. It does have parts of seeking, but lust is where you're trying to get what all evolution cares about is you getting your DNA onto the next generation and passing it on. Okay? I'm sorry, but that's all it cares about. Now, we're human beings. We need to rise above our natural predispositions. But that's where the lust comes from. Okay. Dopamine. People can have lust, even if it's not reproductive, though, but the drive comes from that early part of ourselves. Dopamine. So the chemical driver, dopamine, is seeking. Hormones here are involved, besides a little bit of dopamine if you get it there. But lust, testosterone, estrogen, oxytocin, which is the love chemical, vasopressin, it relaxes your blood, puts the blood towards the right area for you to have sex, feel that love. Subjective experience of seeking is enthusiastic, energetic feeling of anticipation, curiosity, and wanting. Curiosity killed the cat, but it made human beings. We are always studying. We're always learning. Again, that's why you're in this class. You're seeking something, and I hope that we can provide that for you. I think you're not just seeking a degree to make money. I think you're seeking to learn about how people operate. You're seeking because you have the Bodhisattva vow and you want to help others. There's a lot of internal reasons beyond just getting a job. The targeted biological drive for specific sexual arousal, mating, and gratification. That's lust. Psychological role. Motivates the organism to search the environment for resources, knowledge, and meaning. Directs the organism towards specific interpersonal attachment and reproductive behaviors. Okay, so you can see the difference there. The architecture of memory. Let's look at that. So this is what when you take a test in this class or in any class, you're looking at this top layer: explicit declarative memory, conscious recall of specific events in biological history. State-dependent retrieval, memories accessible to normal consciousness triggered only when the original emotional or physiological state is reproduced, like trauma recall. Like I had a client that was raped on a very hot day on concrete in a gas station on the ground. Hot concrete when it had just washed down the gas station before that happened. So there's a certain smell that comes when there's hot concrete and it gets water on it. And so I had a client that when she would go out to walk her dog and people would be watering their lawns and it would get on the concrete, she would smell that smell and it would retrieve all these memories would come flooding back to her. That state dependent retrieval. For instance, if somebody was had an assault done to them at 6 o'clock in the morning, when it comes to 6 o'clock in the morning, they might refeel that thing better than at 6 o'clock at night. So if you really want to do exposure therapy and help them with that, you might want to do it early in the morning, first thing, okay? Because you're going along with the state-dependent memory, learning, and behavior. You learn. So if you study, I'm an night owl, so I study 11, 12, 1. If you could take the test 11, 12, 1 at night, I would probably do better. That's state-dependent. Implicit memory, the deepest foundation, unconscious. You don't know that you have these memories. Generalized procedural rules of how the world works. So that's why sometimes people can forget who they are, like the new movie that just came out. Oh, Project Hail Mary. He has implicit memory. He wakes up and he doesn't know who he is when he first wakes up in the spaceship, but he knows how to do things. Like, how do I know how to read? How do I know how to do that? How do I know what this is and what that is? And his explicit declarative memory finally comes back. But he lost it, but he still knew how to do things, like push buttons and make things happen. Those are procedural memories. Okay. Internal working models. That's from attachment theory. That's emotionally focused therapy. We all develop an internal working model with our primary caretaker early on. That's where we get an idea of that people are there for you, or people are not there for you, or people are dangerous, or machines are dangerous, or whatever. Internal working models formed in implicit memory, probably before the age of 3. These are abstract, unconscious maps organizing our perception. They organize actually how you see things. So when I show you an infographic, when I send that to you, you'll see the different pictures of the archetypes. They are the true basis for psychological transference in therapy, projecting deeply encoded expectations onto new relationships. Like people project their primary caretaker onto the therapist, or somebody that betrayed them onto the therapist, depending on a lot of different various things, which we'll talk about. But those are internal working models that are formed from implicit memory. The origin of fantasy, a paradigm shift. How do internal mental objects form, like images of our mother? Around 1 or 2, we realize, oh, mama is going to come back. And they'll go around and they'll do, they'll look around the room at all the faces. Not the mama, not the mama, not the mama. The baby starts to frown, not the mama. Oh, there's mama, and the baby will smile. Okay, so the classical drive theory, which is Freud and Klein, Melanie Klein, this is the classical theory. Fantasy is a direct expression of an internal instinctual drive. It's your sex drive, basically, for Freud. Mechanism. Images exist preformed in the brain, seeking release. External reality is largely ignored in the early stages. When we know that's not really true now, but result, defensive distortion of reality purely from within, where you distort reality, and parts that you can't stand in yourself, you project onto other people. Cognitive attachment theory. Bowlby, Gene Knox, and Jung. Okay, which these are all the references that we got for that from that idea. And you see here, this is the interaction between the mom and the child. When the mom has all this history and is projecting on the child, child's learning about the parents, daddy, mama, me, or whatever. Okay, fantasy is a working model constructed from real experiences, filtered through innate predispositions. Like children, innate predispositions. Children all over the world like what their parents eat. They see their parent eating thing and they like that food more than if they don't see anybody eating that. And that's good because you see the parents don't eat the red berries, so you don't eat the red berries. You're going to live longer. It's all evolution. Mechanism. Actual environmental events are internalized and imaginally reworked to maintain psychological survival. The result, transference and family are complex, defensive, internal working models projected outward. For instance, if you were traumatized by a male, you're going to have a harder time trusting a male therapist because of the transference and the internal working model. These people are dangerous. But if you're a woman therapist, you're going to bond easily with a woman who was abused by a male because she trusts you, but yet you're not powerful. So later on, you're going to get that third person. You're going to get the woman therapist is going to get projected onto them, the third person who stood by and didn't do anything. Now, the same thing could be reversed if you were abused by your mother and your father was kind of the one who should have done something about it. You'll project that onto him. That's not gender-based. It's based on what happened to people in their early childhood. That's their innate working model. Okay, transference and fantasy are complex, defensive, internal working models projected outward. That's how we understand the world. Archetypal constellations, the duality of the sage. So this is looking at organizational psychology, and the sage is not the CEO, it's the founder or the old wise person that is really knows all the secrets, well, where all the bodies are buried in the company, all that. And they give advice. Archetypes are potential behavioral constraints containing both integrating and destructive potentials. In modern organizations, this manifests as the sage, which is an archetype. Integrate, there's the light and the dark side of it. All archetypes are bipolar. And bipolar, not meaning that they have bipolar, but they're like, for instance, there's the Great Mother, the Madonna, Gaia, all that. And then there's Kali, who eats her babies. Okay? So there's always two sides to the pole. Integrating light, phonesis, practical wisdom. That's also an example of a goddess, the wise old woman. Okay, cultivates genuine organizational wisdom and deep awareness. Acknowledges human limitations and complex paradoxes. Promotes the humanization of the workplace, balancing trust against manipulative power, drawing on humanist traditions. Now, some people call this the guru. Destructive, shadow, control, and appropriation. When you deal with your supervisor, you want the light sage here. You don't want the dark sage. Manifests as an exploitive management guru, selling the illusion of control. Institutionalizes knowledge management not to share wisdom, but to appropriate tacit knowledge from workers. He's trying to milk the workers for what they know in order to raise his own self-esteem and his own how he appears in other people's eyes, his own persona. Prioritizes asymmetric power, fame, and profit over organizational health. That's the destructive shadow side of the guru or the consultant, that person. Now, the Dionysian tension, sound and the shadow. This is very interesting. So there's a lot of research that music is a very archetypal thing. There's archetypal music. We experience the archetypal and truth. So the Dionysian archetype, the god of wine, but it was really the god of ecstatic vision. And Dionysus is a very fantastic god. It's behind a lot of creativity, is a boundary dissolving force, dissolving the boundaries. Dionysus, goes down to visit Zeus. He goes in everywhere. The ecstasy. Dionysus was able to go in the upper world with the Olympians. He was able to go to the human world, and he was able to go down to the underworld. Most gods can't. They're most stuck in a certain place. So the force dissolving force of ecstasy, madness, and instinct. It bypassed the rational mind, flooding the nervous system. We experience this archetypal intrusion profoundly through sound. The shadow of sound. Misophonia. Misophonia is an extremely autonomous emotional response like rage or disgust to highly specific trigger sounds. It operates like a hostile complex or shadow possession. The ego is rendered entirely powerless against the auditory sign stimulus. So like if I had a song, da 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 da, that would be very light. If I said dun 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 dun, dun, the sound has a emotional archetype to it. The archetypal link, just as Dionysus brings both creative inspiration and destructive addiction, sound carries a numinous power, capable of soothing the nervous system or violently triggering survival instincts. So let me stop sharing for a second here, and I would like to show you an example.
What is misophonia? Have misophonia, certain sounds are experienced in a much more intense way, and this creates powerful emotions and distracting thoughts. There are two things that often trigger misophonia. The first are related to sounds that come from your mouth, the way you breathe, the way you eat. Other sounds that can trigger misophonia are related to everyday objects near you, the way you might click a pen or tap your feet. This is a newer idea in mental health, and as a result, there's no official diagnosis yet. But that doesn't mean this problem doesn't exist. The mental health community just hasn't caught up with what science has shown to be a real problem. Because the misophonia response involves your memories, you're more likely to be triggered by the sounds of the people you are closest to. I started to experience this myself in my late 30s, and for me, it was the sound of my wife flossing her teeth. When she started to do it, I could hear every single detail of her flossing, and I'd get overwhelmed with this rage, how this sound should not be happening in this situation, and I was unable to focus on anything else but the sound of her flossing. A lot of people don't understand this problem, so the first thing you can do is share this video with them and help them understand what it exactly is and how it works. It's very difficult to perform your best when you have misophonia, so if you struggle with it during tests or at work, get the accommodations you deserve so you can really perform at the top of your ability. Experiment with different barriers that can reduce the intensity of sound. When you have misophonia, it's easy to believe other people are doing this on purpose. It's not your fault that your brain is wired in this way, just as it isn't the fault of other people for creating these sounds. Most people aren't doing this intentionally, they're just trying to go about their life. That realization is what really helped me with my misophonia and the sounds my wife was producing. We talked about it. She had no idea she was experiencing this. We created some distance between ourselves when she's flossing, and I'm happy to report our marriage is in much better shape as a result of that.
So that's misophonia and the archetypal link. It brings together creative inspiration and destructive addiction. Okay. Sound can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Okay. Approaching the ultraviolet. So this is the spiritual pole. Archetypes as image schemas. As we move towards the ultraviolet end of the spectrum, archetype seeks to stop being biological urges and become pure structural mathematics. The empty frame. They become abstract in a sense. The empty frame. Cognitive science reveals that archetypes are not inherited pictures or specific memories. They are image schemas, primitive conceptual structures, abstract sets of instructions that orient attention. For instance, for babies, the facial blueprint. This is a human face. Infants do not have a preloaded image of their mother's face. Instead, they possess an innate primal structure mechanism forcing them to prioritize face-like geometry. The eyes above, ears on the side, mouth below, lined up. The archetype is the invisible blueprint. The frame experience provides the content, the actual face. The somatic blueprint, where matter meets meaning. The Cartesian split between mind and matter is an illusion. Okay. Somatics, the science of vibrational phenomena, provides the ultimate proof concept of how the archetype functions. So the mechanism. When pure, invisible sound frequencies, the archetype and the spirit, we don't see sound, are passed through physical mediums like sand or water, matter and biology, they instantly organize chaotic particles into precise, highly structured geometric mandalas. The structure is hidden in the frequency. The matter simply makes it visible. So that's mind and matter. The takeaway. Archetypes are unseen frequencies of the universe. They invisibly organize biological instincts and psychological complexes into the structured behavior we call human nature. Okay, you can see the beautiful mandala there. Those things appear in all of nature. The unus mundus, one world, unus mundus. The convergence, the connection of depth psychology and quantum physics reveal a unified field of reality where psyche and matter are undifferentiated. So you have the cosmos here and you have human psyche here, and the holo movement, which was created by David Bohm, the physicist, connects those two things. The physics of oneness. David Bohm, holo movement, quantum mechanics suggest reality is a holographic projection of an underlying unbroken wholeness. So the brain is a receiver for what's going on in the outer world here. This is like the radio station sending out the radio waves and creating a field, and the human brain is the receiver. Everything divided belongs to the same world. That's called synchronicity. Psychological equivalent of this unity. Inner archetypal states match outer physical events without causal connection, piercing the veil of the unus mundus. That's why, I am on a trip and I'm swimming in this forest of kelp. And I come home and I get a message from this client that's having trouble. And she said, I just want to know where you are. I got a dream of you last night swimming in this deep forest. And it was the exact name of the place that I was at. That forest, but it was a forest. She had named it that. But I was swimming in a forest under the water. But that was a synchronicity. That was there was no way she could have known, but it was a meaningful coincidence. The meaning of number and sound. Jung and Pauli, Wolfgang Pauli, who discovered or invented or wrote the first paper on the exclusion principle in physics, that you can only have 2 electrons on the first level of a molecule. The second level you can have 4. The third, so you can exclude how many you can have on each level. So you only have only 2 elements, hydrogen and helium, that are on the first level, and then you got to go to the next level, potassium and all the other things. Okay, but Jung and Wolfgang Pauli together, Wolfgang Pauli and Jung lived in the same area, and they taught like at a same university for a while. And Pauli was having terrible nightmares and couldn't handle what he was dealing with psychologically, and he was Jung's client. In fact, Jung wrote a whole book on Wolfgang Pauli's dreams, which is about the dream analysis of this famous physicist. Although when they did the work, he wasn't a famous physicist yet. But Jung and Pauli posited that number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, is the essential quality of the unitary reality. Sound, as applied to numerical frequency, acts as the archetypal bridge translating the unus mundus, the one world, into human experience. The Omega Principle, death, entropy, and nothingness. This is the existential reality that many of our young people, like 13 or 14, I have French existentialists that are 14 now. Reality is not static. It's governed by the ontological, the being necessity of entropy, chaos. The cosmos, biology, and the psyche are all subject to the Omega Principle. Our bodies are subject to the Omega Principle. That's as soon as you're born, you're going to die. You know that. The eternal series of passing away and returning to nothingness. The entropic life cycle. The spiral out. From non-being, we emerge into a temporary state of immense biological and psychological tension. That's called life, and we develop an ego. The inevitable return. Bioscience confirms cells begin deteriorating at birth. We are teleological. Remember teleology, the end result, autotelic. That's something you do just for, like I swim just because I love swimming, not to lose weight or get strength or whatever. So we are all teleologically pulled. It would be, I should have said pulled there, towards entropy, a return to a tensionless state of peace. Psychological defense. To mollify the dread of our inevitable deterioration, human collectives inherit transcendental promises. Like we have a promise as therapists to help generate. We're generative. We want to help the next generation. That's why I'm teaching this class, is I want to help all the people that you're going to help by passing on a little bit of wisdom to you that's passing it on to the next generation of therapists. But philosophically, nothingness conditions being. You can't have being without having nothingness. That's kind of existential. Beyond space and time, the psyche at the boundary. If the body is subject to physical entropy, what happens to the archetypal frequency of the mind? The space dream. And this is Jung's dream. Following a near-fatal heart attack, Jung experienced a profound near-death state, floating high above the earth, experiencing an intense euphoria of merging with the cosmos. And Jung wanted to stay there. This is perfect. I just want to stay there. But then he looked down at the earth from way, way up, like where the astronauts are right now, as I make this, where they're coming back from the moon. He looked down and he said, oh, his doctor was his friend. He goes, oh, Dr. So-and-so, he's really going to be upset. It's going to ruin his life. And he said, I got to go back. He couldn't stay there, even though he wanted to, because of his friend, who was his doctor. Falling into the unconscious. Jung observed that the unconscious regularly produces dreams, pointing to a continuation of life, suggesting the psyche is not strictly confined to the physical laws of time and space. As Jung and his friend Hermann Hesse, who wrote Siddhartha and like Narcissus and Goldman and all these really good books. If you haven't read Hermann Hesse, I highly recommend it. But he was another one of Jung's collaborators, and they worked together on a lot of different things. And there's a book about Jung and Hermann Hesse. Okay. Death may not be an absolute end, but rather a process of falling back into the timeless, eternal state of the collective unconscious. That's a Jungian way of looking at it. The unified architecture of reality. How is it constructed? What's the structure of it? The human experience is not a fractured collection of biological accidents and psychological illusions. It's a highly structured, cymatic, blueprint. Biology, the lock. We talked about that. We are driven by ancient inherited subcortical systems primed to react to the environment. Oh, I heard a sound. Is that the wind blowing or is that a lion? Okay? I'm going to think lion 99% of the time until I'm sure, in order to, because that's going to keep me alive. The psychology, the mind. These biological reactions crystallize into internal working models. So you see the connection between internal working models in attachment theory and the Jungian concept of the archetype, creating the complex fantasies and shadows that govern our relationships. The cosmos. Cosmology, the cosmos. Archetypes are invisible frequencies of the unus mundus, structuring our minds just as sound structures matter. And the psionics, so, okay, in the water it causes ripples, guiding us from our energetic birth to our entropic return, which is death. Final takeaway. To understand the archetype is to trace the song of the universe back to its source. See that? That's an infographic that will kind of guide you through this. The archetypal blueprint, where biology meets myth. And this will help you with your assignment that you have today about writing a creative thing. This gives you another pictorial reference. I didn't like the one that they had in the course shell. So the mother archetype, protection versus destruction. So you have Kali over here and you have the mother here with the baby. Biologically triggered by infant babiness to ensure attachment. Mythologically seen as Gaia or Kali. The father, order versus authority, establishes the paternal principle, the social logic of mythologically represented by the sacred king or the tyrant. Again, there's always a positive and a negative side to any of this. The instinct, infrared. Let's go through the archetypes first, and I'll go to that center part. The hero, the seeking system, as we talked about earlier, driven by the brain's dopamine-fueled exploratory drive to transform the ego through challenge. Wonderful. And it gives you a great image there to go by. I like these images a lot better than the images that we showed you. Okay. The wise old woman, phronesis. Okay. The wise old woman represents practical wisdom and the integration of experience. Mythologically, the oracle or the hag. Okay, could be either way. There's always a positive and negative pole. The trickster, lateral thinking. This is Dionysus here. This is the coyote in Native American spirituality. The trickster, lateral thinking, be able to think outside the box. A nonconformist using paradox and irony to shatter illusions. The biological engine of innovation. This is where you get innovation in businesses. You always want to have a trickster. Trickster is not bad. In my book, Tammy, the adolescent becomes a trickster and becomes all emo and all that, which helps her family finally heal. Okay. Instinct, infrared in the body, care, attachment drive. Okay, that goes with the mother, the nurturer, or the devourer. Seeking, exploratory drive, the hero, the protagonist, the king. Play, social creativity. These are archetypal things that all animals have. There's 7 of those. I'm just going over 3 of them to give you some examples. The trickster, the jester, or the innovator. It's Bill Maher. Bill Maher can talk back to the president, but he doesn't get fired. Okay, the fool or the trickster has been known throughout centuries to be able to talk truth to power and be able to get away with it because it's only a joke. St. Augustine said, thank God we're not responsible for our dreams, because we all dream of things that are awful and great, or whatever, but other people might not like. The innate releasing mechanism, we talked about that. That's the evolutionary structures in the brain that trigger specific behaviors when meeting the environment sign stimuli. That's the stimuli that the babiness brings out the mothering. Okay. 7 core affective systems, universal social networks like fear, lust. And this is Jaak Pankenschep. Seeking, etc., that form the physiological core of archetypes. Developmental convergence, the psyche's ability to produce universal expressions like smiling, regardless of culture, or blindness. That's an important thing. Those are deprivation studies. In other words, if we know that smiling at about 3 months by a baby, or maybe even earlier, is biologically driven and not learned, because babies that have never seen anybody smile, they're blind. Babies born blind from birth will know their mother's smell and turn towards the mother because of smell right from the beginning. But also, they will start to smile right when the other babies start to smile, which shows us an archetype. It's embedded. As little babies, we're very vulnerable. We need people to pick us up and care for us. So that's why we smile. And so there's a lot of deprivation studies that study blind and deaf kids to kind of prove that they didn't learn it by watching their parents smile at them. Okay. So I hope you got something out of this. I hope everything was clear to you, and I really am enjoying this class, and I hope you can see how this relates to your assignment that you have this week, and to just the meaning of being a therapist, and how you need to understand the archetypes, because you're going to see them in your consulting room.